God bless you. God bless you. Praise the Lord, everyone. This is Pastor Nobles of Greater Believers Worship Center here in the beautiful city of Moultrie, Georgia. We are on our second episode of Greater Believer Moments. I pray all is well with everyone. I pray that wherever you're watching me from, that you are experiencing God's presence in your life. And you know, wherever his presence is, there's his power. And wherever God's power is, there is his provision. And wherever God's provision is, there is his protection. And wherever you find God's protection, provision, power, and presence, you're going to find his purpose and plan for your life. This is the second episode of Greater Believer Moments. What are we doing? Everybody has what? A story. Everyone has a story to be told. And everyone has a story to be heard. So I pray all is well with everyone. We're going to get a special guest. We have a special guest that should be joining us in a few moments. And so after that special guest come on, we're going to hit the ball rolling. Why? You're going to be encouraged on today. You're going to be inspired. I'm telling you, you do not want to miss this. If you have some questions, some Q&A, we're gonna get down to it. We're gonna talk about some real special things on tonight. I pray that everything went well wherever life had you, wherever you was. I pray and I know that if you can hear me, you can see me, then that means God's purpose and plan for your life is still being called out from eternity. What does that mean? If you can see me and hear me, then God still have a purpose. This is why we're here. We're here to talk about, to meet some individuals. Join, share, like, start a party. You're going to enjoy this one. If we can get him on, he has some connection problems, but if we can get this person on, I'm telling you, if you are a Georgia Bulldogs fan, we got to go there. We might as well go there. If you are a Georgia Bulldogs fan, I'm telling you, I'm going to have probably the number one fan of Georgia Bulldogs football here on Greater Believers Moment. Why do we do this, y'all? Because everybody has a story to be told, and everybody's story has a story to be heard. That's what Christ did. You look in the scriptures when people came towards the life-changing power of God. I'm telling you, they met God, Christ, and Christ told their story. Christ heard their story. There are people in this world system that has triumphed on the tests, trials, and temptations. And guess what? You too can triumph. Somebody say, you too can triumph. So this guest that we're going to have, I'm going to bring him on. Now, y'all get ready. Hold on to your seats now. If you are a Georgia Bulldogs fan, Notre Dame, Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, then you definitely want to be on here. So I don't know if he can hear me, but I'm going to put him on live. And let's see, can we get a connection? I want to introduce to y'all this on the second episode. Now that's important. The second episode, but the first one for this year, to Greater Believers Moment. Let's see, can we get our special guest on? Let's see, can we get him on?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, I can hear you. Hello.
Okay.
Listen, we have you.
How are you?
Stephen Lamont Nobles. Listen, my nephew, I'm telling you, this is what y'all want to do. You want to share this. If you have any questions, this is going to be a fun time. This is going to be an impactful moment. There's so much I can say about this fella. I'm almost blushing because I know there's something that's going to be said. Get some pen and paper. All right. Those of you, let me give you some time to get some pen. Not you, Steve. Y'all see that? What is that back there? Chevy. Y'all see that Chevy? Y'all see that truck back there? Y'all see that truck? That's his own project. Not only is that truck his project, but his life. I don't understand. Y'all. He is in Athens. Y'all know he's in Athens. So here Here it is.
uh, it's
Oh
about these
my
Bulldogs.
goodness. Here it is. Go
They
listen.
done gave us a ship.
I can't bring myself to do it. So I just can't bring myself to do it. Hey, listen, Stephen, welcome to Greater Believers Moment. You are on the second episode. Thank you for accepting this invite. And listen, greet the people out there in YouTube, Facebook land before we get involved, before we get into it.
Yes, man. So for everybody viewing, my name is Stephen Nobles, and he's right. I do live in Athens. I am a diehard Bulldog fan, but even more, my wife and I met at Georgia. I attended the University of Georgia, so it's different when you step foot on that campus and you see those Bulldogs win. Boy, we were crying and celebrating, and we had our daughter out at 2 a.m. on a Monday celebrating just to be in the mix. So yes, man, UGA, attended Valdosta State, attended the University of Georgia, from Swainsboro, Georgia. Your pastor, he's pastor to you, but he's my uncle. He's my advisor. He's my inspiration, man. One of the people that I look to. His wife and I, well, him and his wife inspired my wife and I to be and want to do something larger than anything that we had ever seen growing up. He was the only one first, and his parents, my grandfather and grandmother, were the closest thing, but I had never seen it done like Uncle Ben and Aunt Kathy, man. Like they brought marriage to another level for me, and it started me with a hashtag "Make Marriage Great Again." So
Make that,
my wife
oh
and I
man.
are following him to try to make that keep it going, man. So I'm excited to get into the conversation, man. I'm excited to answer any questions you have, and let's go. I'm
All right,
fired up.
all right.
Let's
Well,
go.
listen. Thank you for those accolades. Listen, folks. Listen, folks. This, if you don't have any pen and paper, because this fella right here, quotes come out. Y'all want to know there are certain individuals that speakers like myself, inspirational speakers like myself, sometimes we quote them, and there are a lot of things when I quote him, I don't plagiarize, I give him credit. But I'm telling you the conversation that we've had in the past. And so this is Greater Believer Moment. And where did this come from? First John 4:4 says, greater is he that is within us than he that's in the world. There are individuals like you and I, like Stephen, there are individuals in this world that has a story to be told and has a story to what be heard. I think in this COVID-19 pandemic era, we have taught to what recluse, to quarantine, and people's stories are not being heard. Wait, and what's the story? Stories of what? Triumph. Stories of triumphing over tests, trials, temptations, stories of triumphing over odds. Do you not know that what Christ did before he before he delivered, healed, cured somebody, he found out their story. And what I believe, Stephen, is we're living in a time where there's a lot of selfishness. We're living in a time where people are not concerned about one another. And I think just the climate, sometimes it can be the political climate, sometimes it can be the pandemic. But there's individuals out there right now that need to hear a story of triumph, that they don't believe that their story is worth hearing. And so that's why we have greater believer moments, because Jesus found out you have a story to be heard and you have a story to be told. So the first question, now y'all know how I am. I get into the Q&A. If you have any questions, put it in the comments area, and I promise you that if I see it, if I don't get caught up, we'll ask it. So the first question, Steve, who tell us about Stephen Nobles. Who are you? Where do you come from? How did you end up from a small town in southeast Georgia to UGA?
So, uh, in short, I always love to bring it up, man. That I'm from Swainsboro, born and raised Swainsboro, Georgia. But I'm from if you look up Swainsboro as far as violence and crime, Swainsboro historically has always been top 5 or top 10 most dangerous cities in Georgia. And I'm from the worst side of Swainsboro, from an area called the Hike. The worst part. If you've ever been to Swainsboro, most of my girlfriends will never come visit me, and most of my friends, if they didn't grow up there, wasn't coming. Ben, I don't think I remember seeing you over there much. It's a tough part of town, but there was so much value for me personally that got me to where I am today. One of the things, even in mentoring, when it comes to kids, uh, we live in a time now where the world always wants us to find a mentor or an inspiration. They always point us to the best of us. Like if you want to go to college, you need to find somebody in your family that went to college. Well, I was almost the complete opposite. And when I look back on Swainsboro and I look back on the Hike and the things that I think that it gave me to help me where I am now, the next best thing to knowing exactly what you want to be or having somebody that can show you exactly what you should do is using the examples around you to show you exactly what you don't want to do and what you don't want to be.
Yeah, did y'all say that again? Say that again, Steve. I got to get that. That's good. Yeah.
Hey, the next best thing to knowing exactly what you want to do and exactly what you want to be is establishing what you don't want to do and exactly what you don't want to be. And I grew up in an area, unfortunately, that gave me a lot of examples where I knew exactly I don't want to do that.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I know I don't want that. And I know I don't want to be him. And I've always had great examples around me and great value in all the people that lived in our neighborhood and that moved around our city. And I had two great examples in Grandma and Papa with all of my aunts and uncles, but it was a complete different world from the world that I live with every day with my brothers and sisters. Not ashamed to say a lot of my great friends in the neighborhood around me, but like I said earlier, coming from Swainsboro and going to college at Valdosta, then transferring to UGA, and now I'm the governance and flexibility coordinator for our school district in Clark County School District. So I'm in education, but it's just tremendous value, man. I've always been an avid reader. I've always studied people. I've always looked at people's behavior and their actions, and I just took a little piece of what I wanted from them or found a lot from some of the things they did that let me recognize what I didn't want to do and be. So I was never afraid to be a weed. If you need me to explain what that is, I'll explain it.
Yes. See, we already into it. Explain. You were never afraid to be a weed. Yes.
Yeah. So cool story and funny story. When I was growing up, my nickname on the Hike was Sleepy. Because my friends would always say I slept a lot. Anytime they'll call me, Steve, where you at? We trying to play ball. What you doing? Like, my bad, fellas. I missed y'all. I was sleeping. But actually, I was an avid reader growing up, man. I would read a lot. And I read a book titled Lord of the Flies. It's a book about a group of boys that's on this island and there's no adults. And, they're all friends in the beginning, but by the end, they're like trying to kill each other. And, just showing how these kids are trying to navigate life without adults. And at the end, when I finished the book, it made me realize that the writer was really trying to tell you the caution of a life without laws and without rules. And you're able to just map out how you live and how you go to sleep and how you fend for yourself. And it was a cautionary tale. So I go outside and I tell all my friends, like, yo, I just read this book and I think it's about us. Like, we out here moving around. Ain't none of us got a dad. This book is about us, man. It's crazy. It's called Lord of the Flies. And my friends were like, boy, what are you talking about? Man, this dude talking about he reading, man. You tripping. So, I went home and I told my mom, like, I just told my friends about the book I read, and they talking like I'm lame or like I'm weird for reading. And she was like, no. Well, I tell you what, baby, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a weed? And I was like, yeah. I mean, a weed is that small plant that's in the yard that you make me go dig out of the grass, right? And she was like, no, it's not. A weed is actually, that little plant is only a weed because it's in my yard. A weed is anything that's growing where it's not supposed to be.
Oh my goodness.
If you go to the jungle, if you go to
good night. Whoa. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking. What you said, a weed is what now?
A weed, by definition, is anything that's growing where it's not supposed to be. It's just like cancer. Cancer isn't actually a thing. It's only a cancer because it's in your body. It's
Right.
something that's there that's not supposed to be there. So a weed is anything that's growing where it's not supposed to be. If you go in a jungle, even if it's a rose, as beautiful as it is, it's a weed in the jungle because it's not supposed to be there.
Oh my
So
God.
your friends think that you reading makes you lame because you're doing something in an atmosphere that you're not supposed to be doing it in, baby. So it's not that you're weird or you're different, you're just a weed. And it was like, okay, you know what? You're right. Ooh, you're right. So I'm a weed. And I'm only weird to them because I'm reading when all of them want to play basketball.
Oh my goodness.
So throughout my entire life, that stuck with me. And I've always been comfortable being a weed. Like in my profession now, I'm one of only four males and I'm one of only two blacks
Right.
in those male, black males.
Hmm.
But in every room I step in, the majority of the time when I have to present, or the majority of the time when I have to speak, or majority of the time when I'm having to come up with an innovation or a way that we can kind of move the needle for our students, I'm a weed. I'm the only one in here coming up with an idea that I think will be suitable for what they like to call black and brown or the impoverished or our kids who are in a certain economic rate. But
Right.
little do they know, I was one of those kids. So I speak from a perspective of what would have worked for me when I was their age. And sometimes an ice cream truck or sometimes a pizza party is not the way. So when I bring up an idea that they think is so innovative, it actually isn't. I'm cheating because I'm using my life story to make me able to come up with an idea that fits these kids because I was that kid. And I just have to try to teach these kids to be comfortable being weeds. Don't be
No,
afraid to
it's
grow in
oh
an
man,
atmosphere that you're not supposed to be in.
that is y'all. That is so much impacted. I told y'all, if you have if you have teenage young children, teenage high schools, get them on. Share this with them. So the weed. Let's go back to the weed. So a weed is what now? Repeat that again.
Oh, a weed is anything growing in an area that it's not supposed to be in an environment that it's not supposed to be in.
So you may have answered this, but what made you comfortable? What did you do? Because there's people listening, there's people watching, there's people shall watch that's not comfortable being a weed because they looking at all the other stuff playing around them and they think they're strange. What was it inside of you? What was it in your thought process? What was it in your heart that made you comfortable being that weed in the midst of all? Yes, that different thing.
So, man, a couple of things, but I'll tell you one in short since you know I love quotes. Um, a smart man learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. I watched a lot of people in my neighborhood get it, win, nice Chevy, nice Acura, but then they get locked up and they lose it all. And I watch everybody around them lose it with them. Their girlfriend goes down, their kids are hurting. Mom got to work a little harder, a little longer. Everybody that benefited from what they was doing, it was taken away from them. So I knew immediately drugs wasn't the way
Mm-hmm.
because it had a short lifespan. I mean, to me, the drug game was kind of like high school or like college. Tops, it has a maximum success rate of like 4 years. And I'm thinking at the time, I didn't want to be successful just for 4 years, man. I want to be successful for life. So
Mm-hmm.
what do I need to do? Like, what do I need to do? And then in the same breath, it was little things. Like I kind of mentally tricked my way through school. Like
Right.
I've always made good grades, even when my behavior didn't match my report card, because I convinced myself, Steve, they asking you a question that's in a book. You don't even have to know it. These questions are in a book. Like I don't have to know when all these wars happen, when all these presidents termed, or when all these places or things happen. The answer is in a book. So I literally convinced myself that school was an open book test. It wasn't like home. There's no test on how to deal with somebody that wants to fight you. There's no answer. You have to know how to navigate that world. There's no test or no book that can help you navigate when all of your friends are smoking or drinking, and you kind of, I don't really know, guys. Like, I did it once and it didn't do nothing but make me go to sleep and go through a box of cereal. So I don't really think that's my move.
Right.
So when I say a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others, I was always observant of everything that was going on the hike, of everything that was going on in Swainsboro. And I would mock kids in school. It's kind of like the term, you've heard of a term, a copycat,
Mm-hmm.
where I learned early that there's nothing wrong with being a copycat as long as you copying the right cat. So I would go to school and see the kids that was doing amazing stuff in school. Like I got the grades, but the teacher ain't calling on me like she called on them. So I need to do what they doing. What is he doing is different from me. We both got 88s in this class, but why does she telling this kid he gonna grow up to be special, and she looking at me like I'm not gonna be nothing? And I know it can't just be race. I would never let myself settle for that easy answer.
Right.
So what I started doing, I'll mock that kid. Okay, it's 4 rows in this class, 5 seats across. That little boy sitting on the first row. I don't want to be on the first row, but I'm going to move up to the second because I'm sitting on the fifth with my friends and we back here laughing and talking. So I'll just move up. And I started treating school like it was work, like I was in the street hustling. A lot of them boys would play ball with us. A lot of them would crack jokes with us. But when it came for them to them selling drugs or getting into it with another man, they would shut down the games and they would focus on what they're doing. Even
Right.
though it was bad, they would lock in. That same guy that was just laughing and playing, now I hear got a gun telling somebody what he'll do to him. That's a scary example, but for me, I realized that when I was at school in the classroom, I got to lock in. Like, this is my work, this is my hustle. So I'm going to lock in, I'm going to do this. And when we change classes, when we go in the lunchroom, we go in that recess, I'm going to play a joke with my friends. But when that bell ring, I'm locked in. I'm mad about it. I'm focused. I'm going to try to get it because that's what I seen the kids doing, that the teacher was telling them they had the world at their hands. And I wanted it.
Good. Now, listen, Jennifer Cadenhead of Open Door stated that she's sharing this with her youth group. Thank you, co-pastor Cadenhead of Open Door Christian Church in Moultrie, Georgia. I'm telling y'all, I'm already like crazy. One of the most powerful statements that we just heard: don't be afraid to be the weed, to stand out, the thing that's different. That is, Stephen, what you described right there is what I call a mentality. Most people think my church is Greater Believers Worship Center, but Greater Believer is not a place. It is a mentality. That means you're thinking greater than the norm around you. What you just described, I'm trying to calm down, y'all. What you just described is someone that believed more than the average around you. And you utilize another quote he stated, y'all that just coming on, share this, share it, comment, ask questions. We have a Georgia Bulldogs fan. We got to welcome those that just joined, Steve. We got a Georgia Bulldogs fans. He's right there up in it at Athens. Y'all, listen, talking about triumph and overcoming adversity, a 20-year drought. We ain't gonna get into that because I want to discuss football. Stephen. Oh, Lord Jesus. Boy, so much going because those are the attitudes, what you just described are the attitudes of believers, Christians, anyone who is going to make it in this day and time. You got to be thinking. You don't allow your choices to dictate for you. But what you said, you learned something from the people that didn't have it right.
Oh, yeah. I learned the most from the people who didn't get it right because that was all I had. You
Mm-hmm.
don't get to choose your soil. I didn't get to choose where I was growing. I
Right.
just knew I wanted to grow. But one cool thing that growing up in a small town or growing up in the country did teach me, and it should teach everybody in perspective, when you look at a rose seed, when you look at a pine tree seed, man, they look the same as seeds, but you don't know that in the right soil, only one of them has the capability to grow to be 40 feet or 100 feet tall. So I'm not finna let a teacher dictate how high I can grow because I landed on the driveway instead of in the grass. I
Oh my
understood that the environment I was in was just not the soil I needed to be in. But even at its worst, that environment gave me something that a lot of my peers that had it early then didn't have. And only life is going to tell who got the best end of that deal. Like a lot of people who come from the paved route, they don't respond to adversity well. And the
Mhm.
older I get, life is just responses to adversity. What do you
Whoa.
do when life gives you a pivot? What do you do when life comes in, punches you in the face? Boom. What do you do? Like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well,
Yes.
me right now, by the world standards, so by my personal standards, because I'm not embarrassed to not brag, but just to be proud of where I am. I'm living in my mother's dream house. I'm driving my dream car now. But I could slow my entire life down to
Hmm.
t-shirts, cereals, and sweatpants because
Hmm.
I didn't come from this. And growing
Hmm.
up in those humble beginnings taught me that it's not about what I make, it's not about what I do, it's not about what I achieve or what I don't achieve. It's about the process. And I have a process locked down to the point that if you stripped all of this away from me, I'll eventually get it back because I'm still going to be waking up at 5. I'm still
Yes.
going to be praying before I touch my phone. I'm still going to be brushing my teeth twice a day. I'm still going to be active, physically working out. I'm still going to work harder than anybody else in any position you put me in. And that's
Hmm.
why I don't mind starting at a job in any role. I'll
Hmm.
tell them, you could put me in a warehouse in 2 years, I'll be where I want to be. It's not about where you start me at. My processes are perfectly designed for me to be successful. And a lot of kids that I mentor, when I ask them if your life not what you where you want to be, or you're not getting the things you think you deserve, look at your process. Don't look at your mom. Don't look at your dad. Don't look at your neighborhood. Look at your processes. Some of y'all are living a life that is perfectly designed for you to fail. So you got to clean up your process.
You keep going. You listen, y'all. This is what I'm talking about. Dude, it's just so much. And notice what he said was the process. What is your process, Stephen? So you saying you mentioned or you alluded to you have to have your own individualized process, not someone else's. You develop
Oh
your
no.
own. Yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
I tell you, it's processes are so important. I tell you this, Ben. I tell you, and for anybody that's listening, anybody in the world that you admire, anybody, Michael Jordan, LeBron, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, anybody that you admire, you can Google their morning routine and you can find it. Every single person, Warren Buffett was making the same investment decisions and doing it the same way today as one of the richest men as he did when he was
Yep.
poor. So
Hmm.
it's not about the money he has now, it's his process.
Hmm.
Kobe Bryant is famous now for
Hmm.
winning a championship. And when the team was celebrating and they got ready to leave the gym, he was out there shooting free throws for 2 free throws that he missed in the second quarter. And they had
Hmm.
won a ring. It wasn't about the game and it wasn't about the ring. He was focused on his process. So for me, the things that I've put in place in my life has perfectly designed me to be successful. So even if everything from me today is stripped away, I'll eventually get it back because my process is where it needs to be. And a lot of people don't really put enough emphasis on the things that they need to do daily. And that's how when I talk with the kids I work with, Ben, I always try to trick them into giving me the answer that I want to give them so we can start talking about process. So one of the first things I do and one of the things I inspire y'all to do, and I did with Aunt Sam's class, Ted's wife, my Uncle Ted's
Hmm.
wife, she was a teacher and she asked
Hmm.
me to come speak with her class.
Hmm.
So I go in and she had a rowdy group. They gave her like the rough kids, so, the black kids.
Uh-huh.
So I go in the classroom and all of them kind of looking at me, they looking at how I dress, them Yeezys, bro, your earrings real? I'm like, yeah, 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 I hear you. That's cool. But man, let me ask y'all a question. What kind of car you want to drive when you grow up? They like, ooh, I want a Ferrari, a Lamborghini. So I'm writing it on the board. Lamborghini, what kind of car you want? I want a Hellcat. Ooh, you want a Hellcat? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 70,000. I write it on the board. What kind of car you want? Man, I want a Bugatti. Ooh, a Bugatti. I never even heard of that. That's crazy. Bugatti. So then I'm like, so what kind of house you gonna park that car at? Boy, that's a nice house car. What kind of house you gonna park it at? Ooh, I
Mm-hmm.
want a house, 5-car garage. I want to have 20 bedrooms. My whole
Mm-hmm.
family gonna live there. Ooh, you want a mansion? I write it on the mansion. What kind of clothes you gonna wear with this thing? What kind of jewelry you gonna wear? Ooh, I want a Rolex. I want a Philippe. I want all. So they telling me all these things and I'm writing them on the board. So then we have this whole list, 3 categories: jewelry, house, car. Ooh, I know exactly how you plan to live when you grow up. All right, let me ask you this. Are you making Bugatti decisions right now?
Mm.
Are y'all making 10-car garage decisions right now? You don't trip and fall into a Lamborghini.
Mm-mm.
That's a $400,000 car.
Mm-hmm.
You want 5-car garage, that's like $1 million home. You have to make those type of decisions now. If I talk to your teacher, are you making $1 million grades? You know, like your
Right.
entire life
Right.
has to be aligned with where you hope to be when you grow up. Because if you guys are in middle school, they were 8th graders. You're like 5 years away from living in that house or staying at your mom's house,
Right.
living in with a 5-car garage or living in a house that doesn't even have a driveway, of driving in a Bugatti or driving in a Chevy. You have to make
Mm-hmm.
those decisions today. And I do that so that they can align the two. I understand why kids want to be rappers and athletes because I wanted it too when I was younger.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's not the rapper's fault and it's not the athlete's fault. It's actually the people who are doing well. It's our fault. When you live in the hood, when you live in the hood, Pastor, y'all have to forgive me because he's my
Go
uncle.
ahead. You
So I
just
call him
oh
Unc.
yeah.
So when you live in the hood, the only people that expose their entire process are drug dealers and athletes. We
Man,
get to see drug dealers go from standing on a corner to walking on the street to buying a box Chevy to buying an Acura to maybe
mm-hmm.
even buying a Benz. I saw his entire process. I saw him live down the road from me, get an apartment across town, and then get a house in Lake Luck on the outskirts.
Mm-hmm.
I saw his
Mm-hmm.
entire process. When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to athletes, I saw him play in middle school. I seen him play in high school. I seen him play in college, and I saw him go pro. I saw Allen Iverson play in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Then I seen him at Georgetown. Then I seen him
Mm-hmm.
get drafted by the 76ers.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's think about a teacher. We grew up with them. We seen them go to school. They made great grades. And then they disappeared to this mystical, magical place called college. And then they came back in 4 years and told me, I'm a
Oh
teacher now.
man.
And you can be like me too. And I'm like, whoa, what did you do for 4 years? Where
Yep.
did you go? What happened? I'm a doctor. You disappeared for 8 years. Where did you go? I didn't get to see their entire process. So I can't aspire to be something that I don't even understand and I don't even know what happened. And a lot of kids who have never been to college have this weird perception that it's a bunch of kids with glasses with the tape between the middle and pocket protectors. And it's like, no. So one of the first things that I started doing for Swainsboro when I got to college and when I started to make some moves professionally
Mm-hmm.
was start to expose the entire process. Like, guys, we can't just tell these kids that they should want to be more than drug dealers. We have to show them that our life is far more greater than a drug dealer's life. And I tell a kid right now, I tell them straight up because I be real with them. I grew up in the hood. So I
Mm-hmm.
tell a kid, you can come have dinner with my wife and I, my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find me a drug dealer that's living like I'm living, sell all the drugs you want.
Mm-hmm.
But if your drug dealer ain't driving this Tesla and they're not living in this house and they're not dressed like that little girl you finna see coming down those stairs, let me show you another way. Because I sleep like a baby. I have no worries. I don't have to worry about the police kicking my door in. I don't have to worry about an op coming to shoot me or try to retaliate on me. I can go to any neighborhood I want right now because I'm real enough that they understand that I'm not here to offend you. I'm not here to take from you. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help that little boy in 2C. So you should be smart enough to do what you're doing, but don't intervene with him trying to do more. And if you really gonna be a gangster, if you're really gonna be a thug in that rough neighborhood, be hard enough to allow those kids to stand at that bus stop and not have to worry about a thing. Be tough enough to allow that old lady living down the road to be able to walk back and forth to church and nobody is going to hurt her. If you're just going to gang bang on a block, protect the block that you gang bang on. Because that's
See,
another thing that I got from my neighborhood that nobody else talks about.
and that's the thing, man. You said so much a lot. There's one thing you mentioned, Stephen, that's so scriptural. That's what you just described was discipleship. Jennifer Cater had said this. It's the same thing when it comes down to being a believer in Christ. Disciples are disciplined. What Jesus came to show us was the process. Why I'm doing Greater Believers Moments is because somebody somewhere need help out of a situation, but know that individuals that were successful never came back and showed them the what? The process.
The
What you just
process.
described. What you just described. The process. Man, listen, y'all. This is some good mojo. I hated to stop him because he was on the road, but this is so good. Stephen, address this issue because not only in when individuals make it out of that tough spot, some individuals individuals feel like to make it out, you've abandoned them. But what I say is a lifeguard, a drowning person can't help a drowning person. Save yourself, then go back and pull out. That's what I just heard you say. What would you tell that person that feel like to be better or to get out, that they feel some type of condemnation? Because even as a pastor, even in discipleship and Christianity, people feel like, to give their lives to Christ, to start living righteous, that they're abandoning what you were. You're not abandoning, you're getting better so that I can go back and pull others. Talk to us about, you understand the question?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, we all go through it. And
Mm-hmm.
even me personally, I think still sometimes I suffer to some degree from survivor's guilt. Like
Yeah.
that guilt of feeling like you're the only one when so many other people have lost their lives or just can't get to where you get to. Uh, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. You just can't do it to your demise. Because I'm a firm believer in a team effort. It just has to be from a different perspective because the higher I move up, the more I realize where I came from is no longer my chill spot. And it's a difficult thing to navigate because you have, I tell you what, I'll say this since we're on a spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
The story of Jesus was not just for us to read the miracles and the things that he did to just marvel at. Jesus' story, from my perspective, was more about service. Throughout
Yes.
the entire Bible, he was always serving. He
Yes.
washed the feet of his disciples. He helped the blind. Jesus wasn't what we've kind of created when we think the best of us who are destined to go to heaven are these men and women who are sitting in this beautiful cathedral of a church wearing these nice suits. Jesus was always in the street and was always moving. So I would encourage anybody that comes from an adverse background to not turn your back on where you come from, but in the same degree, you have to do more than just provide a couple of dollars. You have to do more than just give your friends a ride or pay their way in a club or buy a drink or just kind of fun to turn up. Like you have a greater service. And the thing for me is that I realize that I'm an asset not just to the hike, I'm an asset to Swainsboro. So
Yes.
I get more from my friends of a, hey, bro, I see you. I see what you're doing. I love it. When I go speak at the elementary school or when I go to the high school or when I speak at the graduation. So it is a difficult thing to navigate. But let me tell you the thing that I experience now that's kind of weird. That's not a question to your question, but it's just another level for you to think on.
Right.
my neighborhood went through a span where they kind of turned me into a butterfly. And that's why I focus so much on that caterpillar to butterfly aspect. When I was a butterfly with them, all of them knew we were all on the ground, crawling, walking up plants, scrapping for leaves, in the dirt. We were all in the mud together. Well, for a couple of years, I went off in this cocoon called college, in this cocoon called growth, in this cocoon called marriage, in this cocoon called maturity. And now I've turned into this thing with these beautiful colors and these wings, and I have the ability to fly. Well, when I go back and I fly back to the other caterpillars to try to tell them how good life is on the other side, they have the audacity to tell me, man, you ain't one of us no more. You nah, bro, don't come to the hood. You ain't us no more. You different now. You act funny. And it's like, as the butterfly, it's a weird spot to be in because my friends no longer think I'm one of them because I can fly, but my white counterparts are birds. And they're thinking, okay, you can fly, but you're not one of us either. You
Ooh,
can't
that's
fly this
confusing.
high. You can't fly this fast. So it puts you in this weird middle where it's
Ooh,
like, wait, why is the hood telling me I'm no longer one of them, but I have this other world that's constantly trying to remind me that I'm not them? Because an interesting thing about a butterfly scientifically that I feel is parallel to my life realistically
mm-hmm.
is that butterflies don't have direct flight patterns. A butterfly can't just fly straight from A
That's
to
right.
B. It flutters and it gets to where it needs to go. And I feel like that's the perfect simile or the perfect
Metaphor.
example of how my life has been to get to where I'm at. It hasn't been a direct flight pattern, but I think that's by design. I think
Yes.
it's by design. And there's a lot of things to the whole, like being, I've really studied this because when I came up with the idea, it was like, man, I think I'm onto something. Because it's weird that they've made me a butterfly. Like my friends that are still caterpillars trying to tell me that I'm not one of them anymore. But I have so many other people telling me you good, you're flying, but you're still not
But
one of
you're in the
us.
bird. So,
No,
so the scripture says in Romans, when you mention the butterfly, it says in Romans chapter 12, verse number 1 and 2, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed. That word transform comes from a Greek word that means metamorphosis, what the butterfly goes through. What you just said let me know that regardless of where we at in life, all of us go through a metamorphosis. What you
the
you
thing,
was a caterpillar.
man,
So now that you the butterfly, you know what it feels like to be a caterpillar. So all of
listen,
us,
listen, I get that whole feeling, man. And it's an interesting quote I read one time that says that God doesn't choose, he never chooses the perfect, he perfects the chosen. And that's how I truly feel. God doesn't choose, he never chooses the perfect, he perfects the chosen.
yes,
So I I've learned to embrace it. To me, that's just another part of being that weed. If that's what you think, okay, I am that. So now I need to study a butterfly then. If that's what you've made me, let me try to figure out more of what this actually is. And it makes
mm-hmm,
a lot of sense. I'll tell you an interesting fact that I found out studying butterflies and caterpillars that kind of blew my mind. It made me like, okay, I think that is what I am.
mm-hmm.
Did you know that when a butterfly is in a cocoon, if that butterfly is removed from the cocoon by an outside source, it kills the butterfly inside of it? The butterfly can only break the cocoon from the inside source,
Mm.
meaning you can only come out of that period, that growth period, that maturity period on your own when you're ready.
Oh my
If
goodness.
anybody pull you out of that cocoon too early, you won't fly. You won't be successful. And I've turned down positions that I've been in rooms with people where my name is being brought up when I'm not there, that they're talking about the work I could do when I'm not there. And they come to me and offer me this beautiful position with this amazing salary. And I'm thinking about what God has given to me and what
Mm-hmm.
he has blessed me with. I'm not going to allow them to try to help me fly before I feel like I'm ready to fly. Because
That's
you'll give it to me now, and if I'm not successful in 2 years, you'll take it from me.
that's so
And work doesn't
Stephen,
mean
that's
you just get
good.
to go back down, right? Then I'm just kind of stuck without. So I've always grown within God's timing, and I've always moved on God's time. And I never wanted to grow beyond. I never wanted to have a blessing that my belief or my strength couldn't support. And that's something that you need to write down. You have
This,
to have faith,
yes.
and you have to have processes, and you have to have belief to support your blessings. A lot of
Listen,
people are
folks.
praying to hit the lottery bin and don't even realize God is blessing them by not letting them hit it. You're not
Listen,
ready.
folks. Listen, folks. Those of you that have just joined, welcome to Greater Believer Moments. We have my nephew Stephen Nobles. I'm telling you, if you just tune in, you got to go back. You got to go back to the front. You got to go back to the front. A lot of golden nuggets. A lot of golden nuggets. Listen, if you have a specific question that you want to ask, put it in the comment area, the chat area, because y'all know I'll ask it. I'll ask it. So let me ask you this. What would you go back? Also, y'all, before I forget, he's also an author, and we're going to talk about Super Chick. But what would you, Stephen, what would you tell your 13-year-old self?
Man, you know what? This may seem unbelievable, but because I'm such a process person, and I honestly in my heart feel every single thing that I've endured throughout my life before now got me to where I am now, I wouldn't change anything. But what I'll tell him, honestly, I would lean in his ear and say, boy, I can't wait till you see what you become.
So so what that tells me is, because some people despise their process. Some individuals can't go forward because they bitter of the path that was laid before them or the table that they sat at. So
You
and I ask that question a lot. And the real humble individuals tell the truth. I would just tell him to keep pushing. You mean because we can't change our past. We can't change the
mm-mm,
process. We don't have no control over the path, God, or what happens. This is what he says this. He says in Romans, I listen, all things work together for good to
for the
them that
greater
are
good.
called according to his purpose. Called. What you finna say, Stephen? Go ahead. Y'all got
No,
questions? Y'all better ask.
I was just about to say that's one of the cool things that my mom used to tell me. It's so funny because I have two brothers, and they're very different from how I turned out to be. When you grow up in a rough situation, when you grow up in a rough hood, when you grow up with a parent who's struggling with drugs, or in my case, my stepdad was on drugs my entire life. Him and my mom started dating when I was 5. They got married when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not ashamed to say it now. I didn't even attend the wedding. I didn't take it serious. But he never turned back after stopping. He got saved watch night 2001, and he never turned back. Cold turkey, no rehab, no nothing. Just walked in church, prayed, cried out, snotty nose, told him he didn't want it no more. God really took him away from it, and he moved forward. But the thing that I would tell anybody that's in a tough situation, that's trying to get somewhere greater or want to do more, think about fire. Fire can burn things down. It can burn down a house. It can destroy a, a whole forest. We've been watching all these forest fires. We've seen a fire burn down a bridge in Atlanta one time, like literally a crackhead started a fire. They caught a bridge on
We
fire.
ain't gonna talk about that time.
Nah, but think about this. Rockets shoot into space with fire.
That's right.
If you put fire on the bottom of an open balloon, you have a hot air balloon. That fire is not destroying the balloon. It's what the balloon is using to propel itself higher. So
Yes.
when you come from a rough environment, when you're living in a fire, you have to not allow that fire to be the thing to destroy you. Use that fire to propel you forward. Swainsboro was tough. Swainsboro was difficult. Swainsboro, by definition, was rough. But what I made up in my mind was that everything about it I was going to use to fuel me forward. And that's why now you can find somebody just as smart. You can find somebody just as driven. You can find somebody more decorated academically, but they will never outwork me because I came from a fire that is always behind me, fueling me forward. And even if you give 2 people or put me in a room with 10 people with the same accolades for the same position, I'll always win because I will never stop working. I will never stop fighting. I'll never stop trying. And I always encourage people, don't look at where you are, how you're living, and make that the fire that destroys you. Use it to fuel you forward. Use it to push you into space. Use it to push that balloon in the sky. Use it as fuel. Because you don't get to determine your soul. You don't. But beautiful things never look to the left or right. They just bloom.
Utilize the fire to prepare you. So although you have fire, you either can utilize it as a destructive force or make it work to your advantage. And that goes back to the process. That goes back to the process, what you described. That's your process. We see those same processes in scripture. That's the thought. That's the mentality I'm trying to tell y'all. That's the mentality of a greater believer. Somebody that understands I'm here. This is what life dealt me. I can either utilize this fire to consume me, or I can utilize this fire to propel me. That's some good mojo right there. Listen, y'all, we're almost at the hour. Can you believe an hour just doesn't went by? Golly.
Man, you know how we talk.
Are there anyone online that want to ask Stephen a question? He's not able to answer. He's not going to answer. Stephen, while we're waiting to see if someone's going to ask a question or me a question, talk about your book, Super Chick, and also talk about your program, your YouTube page. Tell us something about that, because there may be some educators that's going to watch this. Tell us about that. Tell us about those two things.
So, um, being an avid reader, being in education, hearing a lot of the reading scores of where they are not or where they are. If anybody has been around anything connected with education, you know that reading is one of the toughest places or the toughest spot as far as achievement for almost any district, especially in Georgia. Our reading scores are low, and our kids aren't reading at a level that they need to be reading at. A lot of them aren't even reading on grade level. For me personally, reading is like sports. Um, the kids who do it the best are typically the kids that do it the most, and that's just the easiest way for me to look at it. So
Mhm.
when you talk about the book, I have always been a writer. I've always wrote a lot of poetry, always wrote a lot of short stories, but I wanted to write a book that would appeal to the 5-year-old me
Mhm.
or the 8-year-old me. So I came up with a story. It was really just for my daughter, to be honest, because my wife and I met at the University of Georgia, but we connected in college having a conversation about both growing up in the hood. And we were both at this amazing prestige college. And, it's like, well, how did we get here? That's so crazy that we're here. And somebody, like Ted, when I was in school, George Bush's nephew was at Georgia, and Zell Miller's nephews were at Georgia. And it's like the craziest thing.
Mhm.
All these kids are driving in Range Rovers, and here I go from Swainsboro, from the Heights, and here my wife goes from inner city Atlanta, and we're right here with them. And we're making the same grades with them. We're going to walk across that stage with them. So when I had a daughter, I wanted to tell her our story without going into the grim, great detail, because I don't think that's important. She just needs to know that her
Right.
mom and dad came from an environment and we made it some type of way.
Mhm.
So I came up with an idea of the super chicken. And not in the sense of the chicken being a superhero, but the thing that lined perfectly for me is that a chicken is a bird with wings, just like eagles and hawks and falcons, but it can't fly. Now, most of us know, if you ever grew up around chickens, they can fly enough to get away from you. They can fly enough to to get where they're not supposed to be, but they can't fly.
Right.
So that was us to me. Like, we were birds with wings, like all the other birds, like all the other kids, but we couldn't fly, and the world didn't expect us to fly. So in the book, this little girl is told this bedtime story by her dads in this world of all chickens. They're all chickens. So she's a chick. And she's told these stories by her dad every night of these chickens that learn to fly as high as eagles as fast as hawks and as far as falcons. And he tells this story every night to motivate her, to want to be more than where she was, where all the other chicken were plucking at the ground like, baby, you could fly, because there's another group of chicken that did it one time. So he gave her these principles, to love to read, to learn to lead, and to learn to believe, and then you'll achieve. And he would tell her that every single day. And at the end of the book, when she graduates, they give her a present. And when she opens it, it's a frame of her parents flying at the University of Georgia. And then they reveal that they were the super chicken that they had been telling her about, and now it was her turn to fly. So that for me was a perfect story that was for everybody, but it was really for kids that looked like us, because a lot of them are chicken. A lot of them have wings. They have opportunities. They always tell you, everybody, you can be whatever you want to be, but nobody considers that some of them, you have wings and you have the capability. You see the sky, but it's not just as easy to fly. So that was the book that I wrote, the children's book that I wrote. And that directly aligns with the YouTube page. So if any of you are watching are educators, and a lot of, I'll tell you this, I'll back up. The reading scores are poor, but they're specifically poor for African American kids, and even more specifically for African American males.
Mm-hmm.
And being where I am now, I know the value of representation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just great that Barack became president, but it was important for a little kid to see an African American male as president, because now it's possible. And it's just
Right.
like in sports, all of the records and everything will never be broke. And then it feels like when one person breaks it, almost every year after that, it's broke again, it's broke again, it's broke again. So representation matters. So I came up with Storytime with Mr. Steven. That's the YouTube page, and you can search Storytime with Mr. Steven, it'll pull up. But I wanted kids to see someone who looked like them, with hair like this, who dressed like this,
Mm-hmm.
who is the height of an athlete, the build of an athlete, but I'm here to read. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to find a fun and unique way to read children's books. So I'll read books to rap music, I'll read books to beats, I'll read it with sound effects and art
Mm-hmm.
and popping and different voices to make it engaging, because I know that kids have to be interested before they'll hop on the business of work. And a lot of times, side note, that's where a lot of our kids fall short at school. They're being taught things that they necessarily can't tie to their life, to
Right.
their everyday living. So Storytime with Mr. Steven was an opportunity to get kids excited about books, words, and reading. And it's been successful, man. I've read to schools at this point, literally all the way across the country, man, from California all the way up to New York. I've read to a school in Canada, Texas, Milwaukee, Missouri. I've read to kids all over the country now, man, just trying to talk, push that love for literacy and literature.
That's good. That is good. Listen, man. Listen. We are almost at the hour point. Listen, Steven, this I have to get you back on for part two. All right. We can get you on the schedule for part two. But
Let's go, man.
I just want y'all to hear this, greater believer moment. This is believing in spite of what cards you dealt. There's things within all of us. All of us are gifted. All of us are given something endowed, and all of us have something from our creator that we have to tap into. And the process, that's so powerful. The process is given for you. Your process is different from mine, because God structured it based on, your personality, your attitude, based on, your environment, based on your track. Those that are listening, I'm telling you, stay in the process. Be consistent with your process. Disciples are disciplined, and you will be successful. And one of the things I hear, you saying, Stephen, is, and we teach this. This is what God does. Whatever sphere of influence, God has given all of us a gift to work in our sphere of influence. Yours is education. The education arena, the social culture. There are systems and culture in this system, in this kingdom, in this world that God wants us to what? Transform, go into and transform. That's what you
Can
did.
can I say something in
Yes,
closing?
yes,
So I just want to say how proud I am for not you just inviting me on this platform, but for you even creating this platform. Greater Believers is going to be something so much more than a church, so much more than a body of work. God has bestowed something on your heart that goes far beyond the pulpit and far
yes,
beyond Moultrie and possibly even far beyond Georgia. Um, I love what you're doing because it's about service. And for anyone listening, life is about service.
yes.
Jesus' story was about service. And without it, you will find yourself living in your dream house, driving your dream car, living in making your dream income, working your dream job, and you'll still feel empty because it lacks service. It's not about the I story. It's about we. And since you know I love quotes, an interesting thing for anybody listening to write down, when you replace the I in with we, even illness becomes wellness.
Ooh,
When you replace I with we, even illness becomes wellness. It's about us and it's about service. So once you make good decisions and you get a great process in place, don't be afraid to put your friends on that process. Don't just let them eat off of your blessings. Provide them your process. Tell your friends when you wake up, tell your friends what you eat, how much you exercise, how much you pray. Because I shared with literally watching him pray changed the way I pray. You know, I never seen someone pray with so much passion and with so much conviction. And it felt like he literally had a direct line to God. It was like, man, like when you pray like that, it has to go directly to the man upstairs. Like this is bypassing the angels and Jesus and going straight to God. And it did something and it put something on my heart that made me realize I need to step my prayer up. So what the work that you're doing is service. Like you inspire me. You created this platform. The work that you're doing in Moultrie, even the washing when you worked with the laundromat to have everybody come. The angels, it was like what was it? Washing angel. It was something with the washing machine, but I just thought that was so beautiful
yeah.
because life is about
Laundry
service.
love. Yes. Hmm.
Yes, the laundry of love, man. The flyer had an angel on the picture of it.
Hmm.
But yes, man, focus on service. Life is about service. Don't
Yeah.
just settle for being great. Don't just settle for meeting your accomplishments. Make the thing that's around you better. Make sure that every place that you step in is a little bit better because you were there. And if you change I to we, even illness becomes wellness. So
Listen,
I'm glad to
I
be here, man. I
I
hope y'all have a great night.
do y'all hear, boy, see, do y'all hear that? When you replace I with we, even illness become wellness. Listen, Stephen, thank you, man. I'm so humble. I'm so humble. I'm so elated. I'm gonna get you on here for a part two, man. I got some more questions, but hey, y'all, listen. I'm telling you, those of you who just jumped on, you got to go back to the beginning. Go back to Greater Believers Facebook page, my Facebook page, YouTube page. We here with my nephew, and I'm telling you, there's some golden nuggets. If there's some children, teenagers, young adults on here, this we heard some other stuff because he also brought in. He talked about his family, his wife, and his child. That's going to be part two. We're going to talk about the aspect, the family aspect, the husband role. Say, I didn't even ask the question concerning the husband and the father and all that. So listen, y'all, we got to go. I can't be here all the time. But listen, those of you who are not doing anything tomorrow at 7 o'clock, search for the truth Bible study at Greater Believers Worship Center. I'm going to start a series on some attitudes that we must have, some processes, some attitudes, some habits we need to build in that didn't change from last year. I'm just going to remind you because each year, and y'all hear me saying this, God do not deal with time like we do because he's eternal. But the same habits, attitudes, beliefs, and values that you needed last year in order to be successful. We're going to look into some scripture. We're going to show you where Joshua and Moses and their model of their process of being successful. Listen, Stephen, thank you for joining us. Listen, hang on. I'm going to cut off this live, but I'm going to keep you on. So, all right, folks, we love you. Peace out. Pastor Nobles out. Tell us something, Stephen.
Hey, y'all have a great night. Have a great week. Have a great month. Have a great year. Make sure that you pour something in somebody else's cup. Don't just let your blessings stay within you. Let them overflow and spill into someone else's cup. Do more to be more, because average is becoming crowded. I want everybody to do more and be more. Average is becoming crowded. Y'all got this.
That's some crazy stuff right there. All right, peace out, y'all. We out here.